Keon Coleman is a market disruptor, but is he receiver 2? That's the question. We're going to make the case for Keon Coleman as well as several other prospects that we all collectively have in our top 5. And then we're going to talk about how these players actually stack up after Marvin Harrison Jr., who is receiver 1. So let's start there, Headley. Keon Coleman, make the case for him as receiver 2.
State.
First and foremost, number 1, state. That's the type of talent we have here,
bro.
Here we go. Here we go.
Big, 6'4", big body. I think out of all these receivers, his ball skills, he's probably top of the class, man. Going up and getting it at his highest point. He showcased this all season long. His run after the catch ability, and he does work there as a punt returner. So being able to catch the football and score touchdowns, man, he does that. He's not the best route runner, when you compare him to these top guys, Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison Jr. He's not a slouch there either. He can separate, just playing above the rim. That's where he wins more than these guys. And if you want a wide receiver 2 that has the size, the yards after catch ability, and could play above the rim, make those 50-50 balls 80-20, and I think he's going to test well also. It's going to be hard to keep him out the first 15 picks in the draft. You see the talent. It's all there, man. He's made up really well.
Yeah.
You sound reluctant. You sound reluctant.
Listen, for the past couple of weeks, if you'd have asked me who was wide receiver 2, 1 week I'd have told you Coleman. Next week I'd have told you Nabers. The week after I would have told you Odunze. But yeah, for the case for Coleman, man, I mean, Headley kind of said it in terms of his ability to go up and get the football, man. He is a big play guy after the catch, man. He's extremely exciting. He plays with extreme passion and desire to go up and get the football, to take it away from anybody. And he's a guy who can just break tackles because he's strong and he's powerful, man. So, once he catches that football, it can get a little scary, man. Kind of AJ Brownish type vibes in terms of him being able to break tackles when he's in open. I said, let me say light. I'm gonna say it light. I need to see a little bit more because we're gonna talk. Well, let me not go there. I'm gonna leave it there.
Keon Coleman, the thing that stands out to me with respect to him is the fact that he has everything that you can't teach. He has all the things that you simply cannot teach. And when you talk about the NFL and it being a traits-driven process as far as the NFL draft and what teams are typically looking for, you don't have a bunch of DBs that can match up with the size and the physicality that Keon Coleman possesses, right? Strong hands. You guys have mentioned that he can play above the rim. He's skywalking out there. You see the splash plays. You see what he does, even at that size, in terms of being a ball carrier after the catch, right? And I think that is an area that it's so important at the NFL level. So many throws are tunnel screens, bubbles, things that are short, extensions of the running game, and you're depending on that athlete to go out there and out-athlete the next guy. And Keon Coleman has demonstrated the ability to do that. Of course, playing at Michigan State previously, we couldn't see the full breadth of his skills. I believe Dane Brugler was probably one of the first people who were like, listen, just wait. He's transferring to FSU. He's going to get some good quality quarterback play. You're going to see what he's capable of. And he hasn't disappointed. He absolutely hasn't disappointed. And I understand. I understand why the masses so excited about his skill set because, again, like I said, he simply does things that you cannot teach. And when it comes to the other aspects of the game that he needs to work on, those are things that can be improved upon, right? Like I said, you can't teach 6'4". Can't teach it. You can't teach the ability at the moment of truth to come down with guys draped all over you. And then, of course, not just come down with it, but then make a play after the catch, right? He can give you something in terms of being blocker in the open field, you know what I'm saying, to spring those big runs as well. So certainly makes a lot of sense for those organizations that are looking for, a big X to come out there and really be perhaps the focal point of your passing attack. So really like what Keon Coleman has to offer. But of course, we're going to talk about some other receivers here. We're also going to make the case as to why they should be receiver 2. So let's move on to Rome Odunze, Drew. And I'm going to start with you on Rome.
That boy can run routes. I know we talk about Ohio State being wide receiver U, but I think Washington's starting to creep in to be that second school that we can talk about it being wide receiver U number 2. Rome can go up and get the football, not to the level of Coleman, but he can make himself some contested catches. He is where he's supposed to be inside of that offense. And he's the main guy that Michael Penix counts on consistently, right? You have my guy, Jalen McMillan, who's gone down, and Rome has just been consistent in terms of getting his production and doing what he needs to do in terms of being where he's supposed to be. And he also is a big play threat with the ball in his hands. He does a little bit different than Keon Coleman. But yeah, Rome, I'm period.
Period.
Yeah,
Period.
put a period on it, man. But as far as Rome making the case for him, he's big, fast, twitchy. Like Keon Coleman, they're both bigger receivers, ex-receivers. But the polish with Rome and the route running with Rome is superior to Keon Coleman. He doesn't, like Drew said, he doesn't go up and get the ball like Keon Coleman. But, man, he could take the top off the defense. He could run right by you, or he could shake you, man. Once he catches the ball in the open field, he makes defenders miss. So he has that in his arsenal. Quick twitch in and out of his breaks. Yeah, twitch. Twitch is the real word for Rome at his size. You know, a big guy that's twitchy like that. Wouldn't compare him. A guy just came in my head. It's not a comparison. Odell Beckham, man, where he's so twitchy. What he could do with his body is really impressive. He's a hands catcher. And the biggest question mark I had with him coming into this year is going up and getting the ball, making those 50-50 balls 80-20. I didn't see it much last season on tape, and I'm seeing it more and more on tape this year. So I think he's improved upon that. And he's just getting better. That's the thing with Rome also. He's just getting better and better. So that's my case for him for wide receiver 2. And also what he has that other guys in this class doesn't have is if you want a run blocker at the wide receiver position, he might be the best in the class, opening up holes for the running back. So he helps in the run game and the pass game.
That's a great point. He gets after it in terms of the run blocking is concerned. When I watch Rome Odunze and I think about, receiver 2, what separates him, it's really the fact that not unlike Keon Coleman, he does a lot of things really well, but I think he does more things perhaps at a higher level, right? Whereas Keon Coleman is the creme de la creme as far as playing above the rim. It's not a huge drop-off to Rome Odunze. You could still give him that opportunity to go make a play. He doesn't necessarily have to create huge degrees of separation in order to make a play on the football. And as you mentioned, the ability, the twitchiness, I think that's the name of the game. I think that's what's necessary in order to consistently create separation at the next level, right? You need to be able to give the opposition that head movement, that shoulder movement, and have a little wiggle to you in order to create that consistent separation. And overall, I think when you talk about polish, we talked about how clean a prospect Marvin Harrison Jr. is. I think Rome, among the receivers, is the next cleanest. I think he has the next highest floor. When you talk about being confident that this is going to be a very effective player at the next level, I don't know that there's anybody outside of Harrison Jr. I feel more strongly about with respect to that, right? As far as doing all the little things right, understanding the technique, understanding pacing, having spatial awareness, being able to attack man and zone coverage. You can't take him away. Outside of rolling coveraging, bracketing him, you can't take him away, right? You have certain receivers who excel when they face man coverage, others who blow up when they face zone coverage. Shout out to Puka Nacua. You know what I'm saying? It comes to Rome, there's nothing he can't do. And then, of course, he can go return a punt for you, not unlike Keon Coleman. So really impressive player. And certainly he's deserving. He's deserving of receiver 2. He has the goods for receiver 2 for sure. All right. We got a couple more receivers that we want to get to as far as why they should be considered receiver 2. The next guy, Headley, he was my favorite coming in, and that's Malik Nabers from LSU. Why is he receiver 2?
Man, he got a lot of traits. While Rome and Keon Coleman has the size, 6'3", 6'4" nature, Malik Nabers is around 6 foot. So he might get knocked on that, but he doesn't play like a 6 foot guy, man. He's a pit bull. That mentality that he plays with. They're comparing Malachi Corley to Deebo Samuel. Now, this is the closest guy to Deebo Samuel's in this class. He has that ability to catch the football, electric after the catch. DJ Moore, that's another receiver where, just get him the ball in space and he could take it the distance. He became Jaden Daniels' go-to guy, great route runner, start, stop, start ability. I always go start, stop, start. I know if people go stop, start ability. No, you start, you stop, and then you start again. He does that really well. I love how he separates at the top of his routes. That's really important also. He's not a route runner, maybe a Rome Odunze or definitely not Marvin Harrison route running prowess, but if you could separate at the top of your routes, be physical with DBs at the top of your routes, that's plenty good right there. And he does that really well. He tracks the football really well. And the return ability, man, like I said, he's the best with the ball in his hands to me in this class. And if you have that and you could get a screen pass, a handoff, you can use him in so many different aspects of the game. And his movement ability, man, in and out of breaks, love it, man. It's so many things to love about Nabers. It's just the size thing is where, okay, I need this big X receiver on the outside, and we could put him anywhere on the field. But Malik Nabers, he's going to thrive in whatever role, whatever coordinator gets a hand on him. It could be really special, man. So that's my case for Malik Nabers as wide receiver too.
Damn, bro, I don't know if I need to say anything else, bro.
No, you got to get in there.
Get in there. Like he done took all the good nuggets, man. Yeah, no, he can definitely play outside. He can play on the inside. He is dangerous with the football in his hands. They use him in a lot of ways, right? So he's not just a guy that can just run straight up the field and strike fear in the safety or the corner out there. He's a guy who can you get him just a smidge of space. He's very dangerous with the ball in his hands. He can head up field. Hit his head on the goalpost. Like Headley said, I love his attitude. I love receivers and corners that when the ball is headed their way, they play with a different level of passion and feistiness. And you brought up a guy that I was thinking of, which was DJ Moore. And I think he may be closer to that with more twitch. I think there's a guy that's closer, we're going to talk about here in a second, that'd be closer to Deebo Samuels, in my opinion. But if we want to compare Nabers to Deebo Samuels, I'm fine with it. Maybe, you know what? He might be closer to Deebo Samuels just because of his ability to run routes versus the next guy we're going to talk about, who that may not necessarily be the case. But when the ball is in that guy's hands, that's when sparks fly.
I'll be real with you. Bro. It's got the highest ceiling in the class, bro. And this includes Harrison Jr. I think Malik Nabers has the highest ceiling in this class. That doesn't necessarily mean he has the highest floor now. I'm not going to go that far. I think Harrison Jr. and Odunze have higher floors than him. But as far as ceiling is concerned, I don't think there's a guy who makes more plays at every level than Malik Nabers. Short, intermediate, deep, it doesn't matter. Hell, you were talking about the size as it relates to being able to be more of a prototypical X. You said it in the same breath. He plays bigger than his size. I don't think he's small by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not 6'3". He's not 6'4", right? I don't think it matters with respect to Malik Nabers. I went on a record a few months back in terms of his ability to get to everything. Fly paper hands. I put it this way. If any of you have an appreciation for baseball, to me, he frames pitch outs to make them look like a strike. So when a batter steps into the box, right, and pitcher's like, nah, this guy's too hot. We're not going to pitch to him because he's gonna drive in the two runners on base, right? He's just in a zone, right? So we're gonna pitch out. We're gonna throw 4 straight balls, walk him, get to another batter, take our chances with him, right? Get them to ground into that double play, for example. When Daniels is inaccurate, Nabers still goes and gets it. He still goes and gets it. He didn't really have the big touchdown totals last year. Only had 3 over 1,000 yards, only 3 TDs, but I think he's going to triple that amount. I think he's going to triple that amount in 2023. I think he's going to force his way into that conversation in terms of who's going to be the first receiver picked after Marvin Harrison Jr. Leads the nation in receiving yards. I mentioned before, he's tripled his TD production from a season ago. He's Jaden Daniels' go-to guy. He opens the field up for everybody else as well. The things that I wanted to see in terms of Malik Nabers, him being locked in snap to snap from last year to this year, I'm seeing that. And that's all the confirmation that I needed. That was all the confirmation I needed. As far as talent and ability, what you want out of a receiver in this day and age, he has it in spades. Yes, there's areas, nuance, right, that he can continue to improve upon. He's developing as well, and he's developing at an immense pace. When it's all said and done, when we put a bow on this class, I find it hard to believe that I'm going to come off my point that he has the highest ceiling. Whether he gets there is a different conversation. I think landing spot, his temperament, the coaching that he gets, all of that matters, right, to some degree. But certainly as far as tools are concerned, even not necessarily being prototypical in size, he's receiver 2. He's receiver 2 with the upside of receiver 1 in my eyes, for sure. All right, let's get to our 4th receiver, and we're going to make the case for our 4th receiver as receiver 2. It's Xavier Legette. Let's start with you, Headley.
Man, this guy burst on the scene, man, and it was against North Carolina. I was like, number 17, South Carolina. I'm
That's
like,
what
dude Wells.
Is that Alshon?
Dude Wells, my guy. I'm like, is that Alshon reincarnated? Like, who is this guy? And 6'3", 227, great body control. Those 50-50 balls, he made that easy. But what was more impressive with the 6'3", 227 frame was when he ran 22 miles per hour after that. Yeah. So he's big and fast. Mingo was a guy like that last season where you're talking about Drew, that's Debo with the ball in his hands, because his ability to break tackles, be very creative, get to top speed really quickly. And I think that's one of the most impressive things about Xavier Legette is how quick he gets to top speed. Like he'll catch a ball over his head and just accelerate. He just keeps going and gets there really, really fast. Like I say, he can stack DBs, body control, high point ability. He got suddenness in his game. So, you know, we're talking about a Keon Coleman. We're talking about a Rome Odunze, a Malik Nabers. But Legette also has an outside shot to be wide receiver too, because he has all the traits. You see him make an acrobatic catch pretty much every week. At 6'3", 227, I think he's going to run a 4.4. You can't teach that. You talk about Keon Coleman. You can't teach those traits. You can't teach that, man. That's big time.
Yeah, man. It's another weapon. I hate reusing words, but I can't help it, right? Just get the ball in his hands and let him work, man. And he's going to do it with violence. And it doesn't really matter where he's catching the football. He is a guy who will go up and get it, like Headley said, in terms of contorting his body. The only issue that I have right now, two things. One, I want him to be a better route runner, but he's in a system where I don't necessarily think we're going to see that. So that may hold him back. And then the other thing is he got to stay healthy, man. It's also a part of his game, though. It's how he plays. And so you may have to accept that, right? So we know Debo get hurt every year, right? So right around that time, it's time to get hurt. It's time to be out for a couple of games, right? And so that may be a thing with Legette. It may hold him back in terms of his draft status because of his style. If you play that way and you don't get hurt, it's one thing. But if you play that way and get hurt, it's a whole nother thing. So I like Legette. I just need him to stay healthy, man. Just stay healthy.
Every time I watch him, I'm impressed. I'm impressed from the physical stature and the speed at which he plays. 22 miles per hour at that size, at almost 230 pounds. I think of all these receivers, he's probably in the least advantageous situation as it relates. Jaden Daniels obviously playing at a very high level as well. And Headley's guy in Jordan Travis in FSU. I think I had to let my mind catch up a little bit. I think all three of those quarterbacks are obviously playing at a higher level than Spencer Rattler. That impacts the receiver. I also think that when you consider offensive lines, what South Carolina is rolling out there isn't very good either. That's a problem as well. So I think when you see 38 grabs at 736 yards, you see that's just that average is just dripping big play. It's just oozing big play waiting to happen, whether he catches it short or he catches it deep. He stacks the defensive back. You know, he could hit his head on the goalpost. So that type of explosiveness obviously goes a long way. Redshirt senior, it's taken a while for him to get to this point and really be able to demonstrate what he's capable of. But this very well could have been more of a coaching situation and just how you're deploying him, right? Coaches, get comfortable with certain players. Quarterbacks get comfortable with certain players, and you kind of force feed them. With Jaheim Bell transferring out, you talked about it, Headley. Juice Wells was the guy we're expecting to continue to flourish, right? And here comes Legette with an opportunity, and he's made the most of it. And I can appreciate that. And I'm sure scouts are going to appreciate that. He's producing big time, right? And under different circumstances, I think he would be producing even more. So when you talk about those traits that NFL teams covet, that there's going to be a hive. It may not be a huge hive, but there is going to be a hive for him. There are going to be certain people who feel like he should be considered receiver 2 in this particular class. So I really like what Legette's doing. As you mentioned, Drew, want to see him get healthy, want to see him finish this season strong in the SEC. All right, fellas. We've made the case for Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette, Malik Nabers, and Rome Odunze as receiver 2. It's time to actually unveil your top 5 in order. Well, not top 5. Obviously, we know who's number 1. We've already established that. But 2 through 5, Headley, who do you got?
I'm going to stick with what I got. Rome Odunze, number 2. I know Keon Coleman, Malik Nabers is coming. I'm sticking with Rome. I just think he's the highest floor guy. I think he's the easiest to evaluate in terms of route running. Like I said, the run blocking aspect of his game is more complete.
He's
more
more
complete
complete,
wide
more polished.
receiver.
Yep.
More polished,
Yep.
more complete wide receiver. So I
Yep.
got him number 2. Number 3, I'm gonna go Malik Nabers. It's something about Malik Nabers. I know I'm state. I know D-Kid's not here, so you know I'm safe right now. He's not gonna attack me. But I'm gonna go Malik Nabers number 3 because that ceiling is real, like you said. Keon Coleman 4, and his ceiling is also immense. I think Keon Coleman and Nabers has higher ceilings than Rome Odunze. I think Rome Odunze has the higher floor. But what Keon Coleman could do above the rim, he just wins there. So it's special, like you said, it's special. The ball skills is very special. 3, Malik Nabers. 4, Keon Coleman, and then number 5, I'm gonna go Xavier Legette. You know, just one season, that 3 touchdowns for Legette surprises me, man. He should have more touchdowns than that. But 6'3", 227, 4.4 speed. He's my wide receiver 5 right now.
All right, man. So obviously we got Marvin Harrison number 1. Number 2, I'm gonna go Rome Odunze. I'm gonna do it.
Both of y'all went Rome with
we
receiver
we
2.
Don't stick with it. Wide receiver U in Ohio State 1, wide receiver U 2, and Rome Odunze out there at Washington, and then I'm gonna follow up with Malik Nabers. It was a battle between him and Coleman, and I'm gonna tell you why. All right, I'm gonna tell you why I chose Malik Nabers. All right, we gonna make it real simple, bro. It's the numbers, bro. It's the consistency that I get from Nabers.
The consistency. I hear you.
Now Coleman's at a disadvantage in terms of State plays defense, so State don't necessarily have to throw the football all over the yard, but it's just the consistency and the efficiency he has with the football versus Coleman, who sometimes he just disappears, bro. For whatever reason, right? It's the peaks and valleys. It's the stock market out there, bro. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of why I have Coleman at number 4, but he's got that big playability. He's dangerous. And then, you know, bringing up the last of it is Xavier Legette. Obviously, we talked about him. And I just want to throw in an honorable mention if I can. I'm not going to throw in there because he's been hurt. So I got to – he's going to take a hit because he's been hurt. Got to be healthy, right? Xavier Worthy. And I know that's Juice's, one of Juice's guys is Xavier Worthy from Texas, who is a big play guy. I think did you call him baby or light –
Devontae Smith light.
Yes. And I like the comp. He's dangerous, good route runner, speed, twitchy. Just gotta catch the football, man.
He might be the fastest wide receiver in his class too.
Yeah.
Right, Jake? Right? What's this guy thinking? He done forsake McMillan because he's hurt. This is an incredibly deep class, you know what I'm saying? And you can look at the teams that these players actually play for and the number 2 on those teams, right? And those are guys they're probably going to hear their names fairly early on day 2. As far as Malik Nabers at LSU, you got Brian Thomas, right? You got Johnny Wilson at FSU. You got Jalen Polk and the aforementioned Jalen McMillan at Washington. Juice Wells, you know, there with Xavier Legette. So really, really deep class. Drew, you mentioned Xavier Worthy, Troy Franklin. I'm sure he's going to be in a lot of people's top 5s. There's a number of receivers, and it's probably a dark horse. Ibuka, of course. As far as my 5, again, it's the same 5, a little bit different order though. Obviously, MHJ, he's going to be receiver 1. Receiver 2, as I mentioned, give me Malik Nabers. I think he has the highest ceiling. I agree with you, Headley. Keon Coleman has a similar ceiling. I think he does, but the sheer production that I'm getting out of Malik Nabers and the leap that I saw from last year to this year has me convinced that he's just going to keep getting better, bro. He's just going to keep getting better, bro. That I don't think people are thinking about it from that perspective, right? They see him putting up these numbers, leads the FBS in receiving yards. He's tripled his TD output, and they're like, oh yeah, he was great last year, but do you see how he's improved from one year to the next? And of course, he made Keon Coleman, who was considered a first-round prospect at this time last year, obsolete in that offense.
He did.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm all in on Malik Nabers as receiver 2. For my receiver 3, this is where we have the flip-flop. I got Rome Odunze, right? As far as polish is concerned, the only player that he's looking up to is Marvin Harrison Jr. Does everything at a very high level. He makes it look easy as well. Approaches the game like a professional. He looks like he's a professional. And then, of course, you mentioned a part of the game that doesn't necessarily show up in the box score. His ability and willingness as a run blocker goes a long way. There's going to be coaching staffs, organizations who love that, right? He can go out there and be the focal point of your passing game, and then he puts just as much effort and tenacity as a run blocker. So Rome Odunze comes in at receiver 3 for me. Keon Coleman is also my 4th receiver. I think because there's some volatility in the production, it's just being cautious at this point. He continues to stack good games week after week. You know, he's going to continue to be in the spotlight. I think quite a few people, whether they watch this show or just football fans in general, already feel that he is receiver 2. He certainly is capable of it. We've mentioned it before. We all made the case for it. He's certainly capable of it. But I just don't see the consistency that I want to see from him. And I want to point some things out with respect to Keon Coleman, because I agree with you, Drew. He's not peppered to the same degree as a Malik Nabers. In fact, nobody is. Nobody is, right? But 30% of Keon Coleman's receptions came in week 1 against LSU. 30% of them, right? Over 25% of his receiving yards came in that game, and 43% of his touchdowns came in that game. So it's the only game being played that day. You got all eyes on you, right? And you go out there and you show out, right? You can't take that away from him. But outside of that game, he's had maybe one other big game, and he's had some peaks and valleys. And I'm going to hold it against him. I'm going to hold the Boston College game against him. 3 targets, no grabs, right? You can't disappear. You're not going to be my receiver 2 if you disappear. You understand what I'm saying? So we'll see how he finishes, because, again, the skill set, the traits, the things that you can't teach, he has it in spades. He's certainly talented enough to be the receiver 2 in this class. And then finally, again, we all agree, 5th guy, Xavier Legette. He's where the volatility is as far as who might be able to jump into the top 5, right? Mm-hmm. We've only seen 1 year of production. What we've seen thus far, obviously, there's a lot to like, but there's some circumstances that have kind of depressed some of his production. So it is much more of a projection associated with Legette. And for that reason, I'm going to knock him down a little bit until we get a little further into the season. We get into the pre-draft process so we can really get to see. I want to see him in Mobile. I really want to see him in Mobile, get a chance to see him up close and personal, see what he's doing from a route running perspective. And you will notice that at 4 and 5, for all of us, we have the 2 guys who are probably the least polished from a route running perspective. It's the name of the game. You can have all the speed, you can have all the physical ability, but the name of the game is getting open. And the top 3, namely in the case of receiver 2, Malik Nabers and Rome Odunze, they do that better than both Keon Coleman and Xavier Legette. So that's what we have for you as far as receiver 2. We have each of our top 5s, and we've made the case for receiver 2. Like I said, man, Keon Coleman is a market disruptor, but we don't have him quite at receiver 2.